Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind those closed-door Senate votes? Especially when billions of dollars are on the line.
Yeah, and the future of some really important programs, too.
Exactly. Today, we're diving deep into a pretty pivotal moment on Capitol Hill. It happened just recently, July 17th, 2025.
That's right, the Senate's decision to approve those significant spending cuts President Trump proposed.
Our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack all the complexities. Understand the motivations, explore the impacts, both immediate and maybe long-term.
And it's all based on the source material we've gathered.
And I think we'll uncover some surprising facts, a closer look at the power dynamics and politics at play.
Definitely. What's fascinating here is how, a seemingly small percentage of the federal budget can carry such huge weight, such precedent.
So the vote itself, what happened exactly?
Well, it was incredibly narrow. A 51-48 decision.
Wow.
Yeah, greenlighting Trump's proposal to claw back roughly $9 billion in funding.
$9 billion? That's not insignificant.
Not at all. And this wasn't just like a routine vote. It was a big push from the executive branch trying to get more control over funds Congress had already appropriated.
So truly razor thin.
Yeah.
Every vote counted. And the main targets for these cuts?
Primarily global health initiatives and public media funding.
Okay. And we saw two Republicans break ranks, didn't we?
We did. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine, they voted no alongside the Democrats.
Which is notable. And also Senator Tina Smith, Democrat from Minnesota, she missed the vote.
Yeah, she was unfortunately in the hospital. In a vote this close, that absence matters.
Absolutely. So connecting this to the bigger picture, what's the historical significance here?
Well, this vote, it marks the first time in decades that a rescissions package like this has actually passed the Senate.
Decades.
Yeah. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, he's a Republican from South Dakota. He really highlighted this. He said something like, it's 0.1% of all federal spending.
Okay. Tiny fraction then.
Right. But it's a step in the right direction, and it's the first time we have done anything like this in 35 years.
35 years. That's a long time.
It really is. So it's not just about the $9 billion, it signals maybe a new, more aggressive stance from the White House on challenging congressional spending.
Setting a pattern, maybe.
Could be. Could set a pattern for future budget fights. And it's quite a contrast to 2018.
Ah, there was a similar attempt then.
Yes, Trump requested about $15 billion back then, a larger amount. But it was actually blocked narrowly. Collins and then Senator Richard Burr voted against it.
Okay, so 35 years. That tells you something about the current political climate. So the Senate passed it. What happens next? Where does the bill go now?
Right, because the Senate made changes. It has to go back to the House. They need to vote on it again. That was expected later on Thursday.
And
then President Trump needs to sign it by the end of Friday.
Friday, that's quick.
It is. If he doesn't sign it by then, the money, by law, has to be spent. So yeah, the clock is definitely ticking.
Okay, so clearly a vote this tight with these kinds of stakes, it didn't just happen. There must have been some serious maneuvering, some compromises.
Oh, absolutely. That's right. The initial proposal was actually a bit higher, $9.4 billion in cuts.
Ah, so it came down.
It did. A key compromise was the administration agreeing to drop a $400 million cut. It was targeted at PEPFAR, the Global AIDS Fighting Program. That came out.
Okay, that's significant. Anything else?
Yeah, they also added some language, basically vowing that other critical areas wouldn't be impacted. Things like food aid, maternal health, malaria, tuberculosis funding.
So reassurances.
Reassurances, exactly. And protecting certain specific food assistance programs, too.
Beyond those broader compromises, I heard there were maybe some specific, almost private promises to win over certain key senators.
That's correct. To get specific senators on board, yeah. For instance, the administration privately promised to move other funding around. The goal was to offset cuts to rural public news stations. And that was specifically to get Senator Mike Rounds, Republican from South Dakota, on board.
Wow. Okay, so it gets really granular then.
It really does. Shows you how these final votes often come together.
But even with those compromises, those deals, there was still pushback, right? I know Democrats and even some Republicans tried to strip out cuts.
Precisely. Yeah, there were attempts. Senator Murkowski, for one, she offered an amendment. It would have restored most of the money for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Well, the funding for PBS and NPR.
Exactly. But that amendment was defeated.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona, he put forward an amendment too. It was actually originally written by Senator Collins.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it would have reduced the clawback even further, down from $9 billion to maybe $6.5 billion.
But Collins didn't offer it herself. Why not?
Well, it's noteworthy. Reports suggest she decided not to offer it herself because she might have been concerned it could sink the whole bill.
Risking a revert back to the original higher number.
Potentially, yeah. Back to the $9.4 billion. And, even Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, people thought he might oppose the package.
Right.
But he ultimately voted for it on final passage, even though he supported some of those amendments trying to change it earlier.
That is a lot of intricate maneuvering just to get to 51 votes.
It really is.
But, even with the bill passing, it doesn't sound like it was smooth sailing within the GOP.
Mm-hmm.
Many who voted for it still seem pretty unhappy.
That's very true.
What was the root of that unease, even among supporters?
Well, the core frustration, it seems, stemmed from a perceived lack of transparency, specifically from the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, and the White House Budget Director, Russ Vought.
Not enough information.
Exactly. Senators felt they weren't getting sufficient details. They didn't really know the full scope of the cuts they were voting on.
But didn't Vought present something? I heard about a matrix.
He did, yeah. He provided a matrix of accounts that would be impacted, apparently in a closed-door Senate lunch. But clearly, for many senators, it just wasn't enough detail, not enough transparency.
That sounds like a recipe for buyer's remorse down the line.
Could be. Could definitely be.
Were there specific cuts that seemed to be a bigger, thorn in the side for some Republicans, even if they voted yes?
Absolutely. Senator Roger Wicker, Republican from Mississippi, he chairs the Senate Armed Services Committee. He said he supported the bill with reservation.
Okay, a preservation.
And he issued a pretty clear warning. He said, let's not consider this a precedent. If you come back to us again, give us the specific amounts and the specific programs that will be cut.
A direct warning, then.
Very direct. And Senator Thom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, he basically predicted trouble hours before the vote. He said, I suspect we're going to find out there are some things that we're going to regret.
Regret voting for it.
Seems like it, he added. And I suspect that when we do, we'll have to come back and fix it. That's a powerful statement from someone voting yes.
So the skepticism was kind of baked in from the start for some. What about the two Republicans who actually opposed it? Collins and Murkowski. What were their specific reasons?
Well, Senator Collins, she chairs the Appropriations Committee, so she's right in the thick of funding. She criticized OMB directly for that lack of information. She said the package has a big problem. Nobody really knows what program reductions are in it.
Just reinforcing that transparency issue.
Exactly. And Senator Murkowski, her focus was more on congressional authority.
The power of the purse.
Precisely. She emphasized Congress should be doing more when it comes down to our own authorities, our constitutional authorities, when it comes to the power of the purse. It really highlights that fundamental tension, between the White House and Congress over who really controls federal spending.
Right. Which brings up a bigger question. Beyond this specific vote, what were the larger political stakes here? And what could this mean for how Congress operates maybe going forward?
Well, there was this kind of dual political threat hanging over Republicans during this vote.
Okay, what were the threats?
First, the OMB director, Russ Vought, he's been openly questioning the constitutionality of the 1974 Impoundment Control Act.
That's the law that stops the president from just refusing to spend money Congress approved, right?
Generally, yes. It prevents the executive branch from just pulling back appropriated funds. So Vought questioning that. If the Senate had rejected this rescissions request, it could have escalated that whole tension. He might have challenged Congress's power more directly.
A potential constitutional showdown.
Potentially. And the second threat, Mordrick politics. President Trump had warned Republicans. He basically said he wouldn't endorse those who voted against this major priority.
Oof. Especially with a big government funding fight looming in the fall.
Exactly. High-stakes pressure.
But isn't there an argument that giving in to those kinds of threats, especially the constitutional one, doesn't that potentially weaken Congress's position long-term, even if it avoids a fight right now?
That is precisely the dilemma, isn't it? You avoid an immediate clash, perhaps, but you might empower future administrations to use similar pressure tactics. It sets a very complex, potentially dangerous precedent.
Yeah, I can see that. And what about the impact on, just getting things done, bipartisan relations? That seems pretty strained here.
Hugely strained. Democrats, and even some Republicans, are really concerned about how this vote could jeopardize future cooperation, especially on government funding bills.
What are they saying?
Well, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, he strongly condemned it. He said Republicans were putting a blindfold over their own eyes and leading rural Americans off a cliff just to make Donald Trump and his billionaire friends happy.
Strong words.
Very strong. And he added, Democrats are not here to merely rubber stamp whatever Donald Trump does, just like the Republicans are doing. He even warned Senate Democrats privately that Republicans shouldn't expect any Democratic help on the bigger funding bills if the GOP approved these cuts.
So, drawing a line in the sand.
Pretty much. And Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, he painted a really stark picture of the long-term damage. He said, it will become hard, maybe even impossible, to write a bipartisan budget ever again.
Impossible.
That's what he said. Because the minority party knows they can get double-crossed. And he warned Republicans directly, Democrats will do it to you when we are back in charge.
Wow. So this relatively small cut in the grand scheme of the budget could actually be like the first crack in the foundation of how budgets have traditionally been made.
That's the fear. It could make future negotiations, those big bipartisan deals we sometimes see, much, much harder to achieve, more precarious.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? I mean, while this vote, $9 billion, might seem like a small fraction of the overall federal budget.
It really represents potentially a significant shift in legislative power dynamics. It sets a precedent.
Yeah, a precedent for how future administrations might approach spending.
Yeah.
And it directly impacts programs, right? Public broadcasting, global health, maybe food aid.
Absolutely. And it impacts Congress's ability to effectively manage the nation's finances overall. It's like a foundational tremor in that relationship between the branches of government.
A foundational tremor. That's a good way to put it.
Right.
So just to recap this deep dive, we've looked at a significant spending cut passed under pretty unique and tense circumstances.
Revealing deep divisions, even within the majority party.
Right, and raising serious questions about congressional power, about future funding negotiations. So thinking about all this, the strong warnings from both sides about how this might change things.
How Congress handles budgets in the future.
What do you, listening right now, think this means for that balance of power between the White House and Capitol Hill? And maybe more importantly, how might it impact the programs that matter most to you in the years ahead?